July 8, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. That's what the chart looked like today. There wasn't that much volume today. Prices did take quite a while for each candle to print. There was only a couple of trades that I thought were, well, maybe 3 trades that I thought were decent, and then there weren't very many after that, and I took 1 trade today. It's actually pretty early. Then there are other 2 trades that showed up. I kind of hesitated, so I didn't really take them, and they turned out to be semi-decent. Overall, the market structure looked like there was a big rally, a break of the one leg, push up, and then 3 legs down, consolidation, another leg down, and it just kind of got choppy. But even then, since the price action and volume were a little lower, it just took a while for the candles to print. So definitely not too exciting today. So I'm going to get into the trades right now. Pre-market. So pre-market, a carryover from Friday, it was a sell-off. It kind of consolidated down here, and then it started to move up in what I thought was this green up channel. There wasn't really any clean setups. There was a second entry long here, but this is a bad signal bar, so skipping that one. I mean, I don't even trade in the pre-market, but if this was setting up in the regular trading hours, I don't like that trade. Prices are moving up. It follows and kind of obeys this green up channel pretty well. There's 1, 2, 3 confirmations in the bottom, and then pretty much like 1, 2, 3, maybe a small break confirmations at the top of the channel. So it pulls back, has a first entry long pullback, creates a second entry long, and then it creates technically a third entry long, but I also saw it as it touched the highs. Whether you argue this is a breakout or not, I'm thinking this is a little iffy, like whether there's a clean breakout or not. So I'm thinking this up channel still wants to test the high. It hits this consolidation area, and I see it as visually one push up, pull back, even though there's a second entry long here and there's a third entry long here. I saw it as more like a first entry long, second entry long. The thing I also liked about this trade is there is this really strong support right here. And if you zoom in, it looks like there was a low here. It's a first entry short. Technically, a second entry short was made here and a third entry short. But I actually set up a trade, or I took a trade right here because I saw it as a bottom of a range, or actually bottom, or just bouncing off of support and bouncing off the EMA. It is technically a third entry, but I also saw it as a visual second entry and multiple tests with a strong support and a bottom of a range. The other thing that I liked about this is it flashed down, trapped people going short, pushed up above the EMA, and then closed really strongly. So it was engulfing. The candle is a little bit larger, but I kind of like the setup. So to reduce risk, I actually entered 1 tick above this previous bar and not at the close here or 1 tick higher, just to reduce risk. And I was able to quickly get a scalp. Pushes up, breaks out of what I think is this trading range. There's a new low here, first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short. This is your signal bar, which is a little iffy because it closed higher than the open. I wanted this to close at the lows or even at least break 1 tick below, but it didn't. So now I'm looking for lower high. Technically, you have a lower high here, but it just felt very tight trading. But then I do see a new high here. It's a first entry long pullback, potential second entry long. Well, not a potential, it is a confirmed second entry long. And the second entry long right here looks like it's about to fail. I thought that this might have been an actual trade. It looks like prices are moving back into this blue range. And there was a spike up and a flush down. And it closed below the EMA, but the EMA is starting to flatten out. So I wasn't too sure, and there is enough room to the bottom or the lows of this range. So possible fail breakout here. A couple of those things kind of rolling in my mind. The thing that would have made me, I think, pull the trigger is if this candle actually closed and matched the lows at the very least. Ideally, it would have broke below by at least 1 tick, but it didn't. So that caused me to hesitate. Pushes down. So this trade probably would have worked. Pushes back up and it starts going down. So I drew this as a trend line resistance. Flushes down pretty strongly here. I do see a second entry long. Technically, you have a new high here. You have a first entry long pullback. You have a second entry long potential setting up right here. And it does kind of form and confirm these. So it's new high, first entry long, second entry long, but I don't like the way this candle closed. So I waited and I did see this higher low. I thought this is actually a potential long trade. Confirms a second entry long. If you took the second entry long here, it's risky in my opinion because there's no other key entry point out here. You don't have this support to act on. All I had at the time was this as a resistance. This is kind of in the middle of nowhere. This is one tick below, then flushed up. What would have made this a stronger trade is if it closed the high, instead of just one tick below, because it shows slight weakness. But definitely when you have a higher low here, it's a possible trade because it confirmed the second entry long. It is higher than this one, and there's enough room before you hit the EMA, which was my main concern. Looked like it would have worked. You would have probably gotten out on one of these candles here. But I did notice like this one, like prices so far are kind of slowing down because for an hour of trading, there aren't very many candles. Prices are kind of slowing down. So I didn't take this trade, but I looked back and I wondered, was I kind of missing an opportunity? And I'm okay not taking this trade. Prices then kind of move up. It consolidates and starts pushing back down, moves down to this yellow down channel. So I look back and I'm wondering, there's this big push up, a break, an attempt, and it successfully made a new high. Then it pulled back one, consolidated, made a second measured move down. Now it came back up. EMA is starting to come into play as a potential resistance. I'm not 100% convinced and trusting that this green resistance line is going to hold because there's only two confirmations. But I'm just watching now and I'm wondering like where is price action going with this? I was thinking maybe prematurely though, if there's a trading range here. So I wanted to see what happens if it comes up to the EMA, and secondly, if it actually if it actually comes up to this resistance or this potential resistance of the trading range. There's too many dojis here. I'm not liking a setup here now. Technically, you have a new low first entry short. You have a second entry short here, but this is just, I'm not too thrilled on this type of setup because these candles are too neutral. Plus, there's not really that much room to the lows, maybe about a point. Technically, the low's way down here, but it feels like things are stalling. It pushes, it makes a double bottom, one touch, two touch, pushes back up. It hits the top here. So I'm thinking, okay, I might be in a trading range. I'm not sure how valid this green down channel is at this point, so it wasn't colored in. It's just kind of hanging out there, acting as a potential guideline. Did you have a new high, first entry long, second entry long? I was thinking in real time, is there a trade here? Because it's a first entry long, second entry long, potential triple test here. But when I saw this, I didn't think prices, oh, I wasn't really sure. I wasn't sure if prices were going to come back down and made another touch here. Ideally, this candle or next few candles would have come down to this blue line, bounced, and then I would have felt more confident. But it doesn't. It starts reversing back up, so it's too late for this trade. It follows, and it looks like it's obeying this resistance pretty well. I saw this as a possible trade because I saw this as a new low, first entry short, pull back, second entry short. So this candle creates a second entry short. It opens here, flashes up, and then flushes down, breaks below this one, completely engulfs it, and actually ticks one tick below. It also is kind of like a lower high. If you're playing range rules, you're coming from the top of the range, it is a lower high. So I'm thinking prices may come all the way back down to here, and there is enough room to enter and quickly scalp out. Looks like it would have worked. Prices then kind of chop around. I saw this as a new high, first entry long, second entry long, a higher low confirmation right here, but I'm not too thrilled on this candle. And this, if if everything had stopped at this blue line and reversed up, I would have thought this is a possible trade. Maybe have even jumped on it. But I didn't like that this orange down channel had broken and it broke past this blue now. So to go long felt a little dicey. EMA is a little bit unreliable. Whether there's going to be respect paid here or not, it's hard to tell. But I saw this higher low. It just felt a little bit risky because where I had my trading range, it could be a breakout, fail breakout, and pullback, continue down. So it's just a little ambiguous. But I marked it because in real time I was questioning it. Left it alone. It looked like it would have worked for a quick scalp. It's too congested here. It's just too many candles side by side. And then now it starts moving down like I thought it might. Moves down to this yellow down channel, breaks out, consolidates, doesn't have a clean push back up. EMA is starting to look like it's going to act as some kind of resistance. Same thing, I saw another higher low right here. I saw this as a new high with a first entry long here, pull back a second entry long, but I also saw, so then you have a third entry long, so gets, it kind of violates the count. So it's, a little confusing, but a higher low does exist here because I saw this as a new low. First entry short, pull back. This is a second entry short attempt, but it looked like it failed. So I saw a higher low here. I wanted a better close, but then even if you got a better close, it's running up against the high of this potential trading range. You can see the next two candles, if you took an entry, you'd be sitting through this, which is, ambiguous because it looks like it's unclear now if the EMA is actually going to show some, if prices are going to show some respect to the EMA at this point, and you're buying into the top of a potential range. So it's just too much going against it. It looks like it flashes through and you'd have to sit through this noise now. I mean, it would have worked, but I think it easily could have not worked and failed. Prices then continue chopping. Technically, a new high here. First entry long, second entry long is a bad signal bar to go long on. Starts moving up. You do have a higher low, but this is just kind of choppy trading right here. I'm not really too thrilled about it. Higher low is already above the EMA, but it's already running against, because you see this, you see a higher low, but then you don't really have enough room to scalp out. So this is just not the cleanest price action. Prices move up in this orange channel, it breaks. I'm expecting at least a test of this high. It makes one attempt, and then technically you have a second entry long here, but it's a bad signal bar. You would not be thinking of going long when you see this, and then you do get a confirmed second entry long, but it closed green, so you're not really thinking first entry long, second entry long failure. It is looking for a measured move, but this is ambiguous because it closed below the EMA. It's closed green, so to go short, I think it's just a dice roll. Looked like it would not have worked. Chops around, starts moving down this yellow down channel. I'm not too so at this point it's kind of been an exhausting day because this is what the price action has been showing you for the last pretty much 5 hours. There's only about an hour left of trading, and there wasn't that many. There is swings here and there, but nothing set up very clean, very confidently. So here, when you see this as like a new high, so you have first entry long pullback, second entry long. Here, you're definitely not even thinking going long yet. Your thought might be, well, it closed up on the upper, third. It might be reversing, but you don't know. So you get a confirmation here. So I'm looking for a higher low now, and you don't really get a higher low. So it kind of runs away. So there's no trade here, unfortunately. Breaks out of this orange. Technically, you have a new high first entry long. You technically have a second entry long, but this signal bar is below the EMA. EMA is kind of a conundrum today because at points it was being respected, then it has violations where price is going above, and violations where going below, above again. So it's hard to use it as any clean key indicator because it's just kind of a rangy, noisy day. So it shouldn't be given too much respect yet, especially in this kind of setup. But at least if anything, if there's a second entry long here, it's below the EMA. It's not looking very clean. It's just kind of ugly. Plus, you just had this really big, well, respect to overall prices recently. It's like a relatively large candle compared to what was happening previously. So it's just kind of telling you to sit on your hands. Chops around, moves down, just gets noisy. I did notice that there's this like five, I didn't mean to move that. I did notice there was these 5 candles in a row that seem to be having trouble breaking out. So I'm kind of looking for a higher low, but it needs to be a clean setup. And if flesh is really high, so I'm thinking, okay, prices might be moving back up. You kind of get a higher low potential here, but it's a doji, so I'm not too keen on it. And you get a confirmed higher low here, but by the time you have a confirmed higher low and you wait for this candle to close, unless you took it in engulfing, which I would not because it's a doji, doesn't look clean. There's not enough going for it to take a trade. By the time it closes here, now I'm running into concerns that I might have a stop out here because there might be some kind of resistance here. But it is a pretty strong candle. Unfortunately, context-wise, it doesn't give you any clean trade, in my opinion. Prices then continue chopping. We have a first entry short, second entry short, potentially a second entry short failure, but I'm noticing that it's stalling out at this imaginary potential resistance here that may or may not exist. Flushes up and flushes out, but keep in mind this is like going into the last 10 minutes. So if this was setting up in regular trading hours, because the last 10 minutes starting here, maybe there's a trade here, but again, you're running into a potential high here, and there's already a resistance here. But then it's already into the last 10 minutes, so there's nothing to be said there. Kind of goes into the close looking choppy. And overall, the market today just wasn't very eventful. Most of the trades, I think, most of the setups were early in the day, probably in the first couple of hours. Then after that, in hindsight, it looks like, oh, there's probably some trades in here. But when you start digging in deep, looking at where the setups are, it just wasn't very clean. So overall, it was kind of a quiet day. It was, I guess, mentally exhausting because if you're staring at it, it's taking forever for each of these candles to close. Sometimes you potentially, if you took an imaginary trade or you thought you'd enter, you'd be sitting in some of this for a few minutes before you find out what happens because the total range is like from 56.37 to pre-market is 56.10. So there's only 27 points, but in actual real regular trading hours, it's probably closer to maybe about right here. So it's only about 56.17-ish where most of the price action was occurring. It's only about 20 points of price action, but even then, it didn't span the whole 20 points. It just kind of chopped around very noisily. So hopefully that was helpful.